Okay, we're going to start. I get to wear this for the people online. I don't know, I'm going to have to figure out how to wear that. Okay, I'm Kim Augustin, just to give you some introductions. So I'm Kim Augustin, again, like I said, and I have been with the Utah State Board of Education about 7 months. So I still claim the newish card, but I'm excited to be here. Part of my time is gang prevention intervention grants. That's half of my time. And then my other time is split between intergenerational poverty, 21st century after school programs, and SB 67, which is partnerships for student success. So I'm hopping and I'm trying to learn everything. So I hope you'll be patient with me. This is my first go at the Bidders Conference that I'm doing. So I hope you'll be patient as I'm learning with you. And I appreciate you guys coming. I just kind of I want to do introductions, but I wanted to give you a little bit of background first. So part of this, we've got a lot of people online, like I said, so they won't be able to raise their hands so I can see them. But how many of you currently have a gang grant? Can I just see? Okay, so it is quite a few of you in the room. Okay. I will tell you, I know part of the history with the gang grants over the years. I mean, I know things that happened, didn't happen, back and forth. I do know, and I'm just going to put this disclaimer out there, I was hired, part of my directive when I was hired was to really rein this program in. And I don't want to say clean it up, but clean it up to streamline with other grants like we're doing. Like I said, we do 21st century IGP, SB 67. The USBE really wants us to streamline our processes, how things work, rules, regulations. So you will see that there are some changes to the grant, and we'll go over that. But I just wanted to let you know, I'm not trying to be mean, I'm not trying to rock anybody's world, but there was 2 directives as kind of to streamline, clean things up, and then we really need to offer this program to everybody across Utah, which it has been, but really promote for people, you know, from all 4 corners, so to say, to apply. So those are the 2 things. I just wanted to kind of let you know right off the bat why we're having this. I don't know if you guys have had a bidders conference like this before. I will tell you, I have heard since I've been hired, I have heard everything. I have heard we have a mid-year report, we don't have a mid-year report. We have a year-end report, we don't have a year-end report. Some of us we're gonna all of a sudden next year get $6,000 split among us. I've heard we're getting no money. I mean, I've heard everything, and I don't know where any of that came from, so I'm hoping today to get rid of all those conversations out there and so that we're all on the same page. So that's my goal, and hopefully we'll accomplish that. I have my colleague Lisa Wisham here. She's running the online, and I have given her permission. I said, please butt in, and I use that word because she thinks she is, and I said no. She's done so many of these for so many years. If I forget something that's vital to say or something that needs to be said, or if I didn't say it quite right, I've asked her to please jump in because I'm learning with you guys. So anyway, don't think she's rude. I told her to please do it. So if we have questions, they've asked me to have you guys use this for the online people. So we'll just try to do our best to remember to do it. I know it's hard when you have a question and all of a sudden it's just, where's the microphone? But I am going to pass this around. I have talked to so many people on the phone and email back and forth. I'm sure I'm going to go, oh, you're the person I've talked to, but I've never met you. So I was really excited for today to put a name with the face. So we'll start over here and then we'll pass it around. And if you'll just tell me your name and who you're with, that would be great.
Catherine McCary with Canyon School District.
BJ Weller with Canyon School District.
Kyle Proctor, American Preparatory Academy.
Veronica Bustillos. I'm from the Unified Police Metro Gang Unit.
Nice to meet you.
Bobby Nixon, Jordan School District.
Norma BR, Jordan School District.
I'm Monica Hollander with Nebo School District.
Deb Ashton, Murray School District.
Dave Burt, Weber School District.
Mindy Holmdahl, Salt Lake District.
Moises Prospero, Research Consultant.
Jessica Miller, Provo District.
Kara Strain, Twilla County School District.
Paul Wagner, Logan City School District.
And I'm Cheryl Ellsworth, and I work here at USBE.
Thank you. I know I introduced you, but you can.
Lisa Wisham, work upstairs,
And online so far, we have Misty B. Singer with Greenwood Charter School, Renee Wapsock with the U Tribe from Uinta River Charter School. And Renee, I'm going to try and help you so that you can see what's going on. Bear with me.
Thanks. Okay, and thank you again, like I said, thank you for taking your time. And I know there's a couple school districts. I knew one for sure, and then we found out there was a second one. We actually pulled up everybody's school spring break to try to find a date that worked, but this was the best we could come up with because with the room and everything, and so I appreciate you coming when you did. I had you sign in when you came in with these blue sheets in the back. You just need to sign one paper. There were several back there. But I will ask you we're going to kind of throw out the old email list, the email list that I sent to everybody about today, because now, I mean, that's obsolete now that we're doing this. So if you'll put either, if you want to be the contact person, leave your name. If you're not the contact person or you want somebody else to be, with you, 2 people, would you please add their name just before you leave today with their information just so we have it. So they're the primary contact people. I know in years past, I've heard all these stories where they put people's names, but they're really not the right person, and so all their correspondence and things have gone to them. And then I'll get the phone call, or Lisa will say, "I'm not getting anything. Why did you put them?" And she said, "I didn't put them. Somebody else wrote their name down." So just make sure that we have the right contact people so you get the information. Okay, is there any questions before we start? I know there's lots of questions, but we'll start first and see. Okay. I will tell you, I hope this presentation isn't too boring, but I am going to do a lot of reading. And the reason for that is because, like I said, I have heard so many things, misconceptions, things that I wanted to make sure everybody was on the same page. So I have put a lot of the history, the board rule, state code law, that I've actually put into the presentation so that you can see where a lot of this directive comes from, right from the law. So we'll start with that. You can read this. I'll just give a summary of this. This is the history of this bill, was House Bill 342. It was passed in 1997 in the legislative session. And the original intent of the bill was to help students at risk for gang involvement to stay in school, enhance their self-esteem, and improve their intellectual and life skills. In 2011, this function was eliminated in its original form, and it came back at 1.2 with the enhancement for at-risk students in 53A 17A 166. So how many of you are familiar with EARS? That's the acronym, EARS. Okay, so that's what it is, enhancement for at-risk students. I've learned I thought the school districts had a lot of acronyms. The state beats them. When I came here, there was an acronym for everything, and I said, you gotta tell the new kid what that means, because I don't know. So EARS is another acronym that hopefully most of you are familiar with, but what happens with that money every year, as long as there's funding, they carve out, it's written that way, $1.2 million to go to gang prevention intervention. So as long as the funding's there, it's automatically carved out every year, $1.2 million. So that's how that works with the money and the funding. Okay, so like I said, this new code was established under EARS. So it's the State Board of Education shall appropriate $1.2 million from the appropriation for enhancement for at-risk students for gang prevention intervention programs designed to help students at risk to stay in school with their gang involvement and other things. The second one is money for the gang prevention intervention program shall be distributed to school districts and charter schools through a request for a proposal. So that's why we're having this meeting, and to go over the grant application. That's what it is. It's an RFG, RFP, if you've heard of that. That's request for proposal, request for grant. So that's mandated in the state code. Also, school districts, charter schools. I did have some businesses, CBOs, faith-based, call and say, why can't I apply? Like I said, it's not because I'm being mean. It does say that right in the law. So, but we do definitely promote, and we'll talk about more. We want you to partner with outside agencies, and we'll kind of get to that when we get through the application. So just because the fiscal agent has to be a school district or charter school, it doesn't mean that you can't partner or shouldn't partner with outside agencies to help. The other thing I kind of wanted to mention with this, I did have some schools, I'm just trying to think of questions as we get going too. Some schools independently had contacted me and said, I'm not gonna tell you who, it doesn't matter, but I'd rather not go through the district as a whole, like we know our needs of the school better. We wanna write for just the school. Can we submit an application? And I said, you can, but not on your own. It has to go through the school district. This is an LEA, so local education agency grant, so it has to go through the school district. My suggestion to them was to get with whoever at the school district is the right person, student services, I mean, everybody's different, but really talk to them about the needs of their school and why they feel it's important. So I really encourage that to mesh, but that's why we say we'd like to have a, school district personnel here or know what's going on, because it really has to come as a school district or charter school application. So any questions with that? Okay, good, not heard yet. All right, here's the board rule, gang prevention intervention funds. So like I said, I'm just gonna go through this quickly. Consistent with what we just read, the superintendent shall distribute funds to LEAs for gang prevention intervention. An LEA desiring to receive gang prevention and intervention funds shall submit a proposal consistent with R277-436, which is this. So I did define, I mean, you might say, I know what that means, but I wanted to give you the definitions from the law. So students at risk, the way they define this is any student who and I forgot, sorry, I'm gonna pause for a minute. I forgot to tell you, this is all, I gave you my PowerPoint for those that you were here. Online, I'm going through the PowerPoint and I did send out the documents, so hopefully you're following along. If you have questions, please write in and Lisa will answer. Okay, students at risk means any student who, because of his individual needs, requires some kind of uniquely designed intervention in order to achieve literacy, graduate, and be prepared for transition from school to post-school options. Gang, as defined in this rule, means a group of 3 or more people who form an allegiance and engage in a range of antisocial behaviors that may include violent or unlawful activity or both. These groups may have a name, turf, colors, symbols, distinct dress, or any combination of the preceding characteristics. Is there any question with that? Okay, we'll kind of get into this more with the application. Gang prevention as defined in this law means instructional and support strategies, activities, programs, curricula designed and implemented to provide successful experiences for youth and families. These components shall promote cultural and social competence, self-management skills, citizenship, preparation for life skills, academic achievement, literacy, interpersonal relationship skills required for school completion and full participation in society. So that's the prevention, and we're going to kind of break that down as we get going. So prevention's that. Intervention now means specifically designed services required by an individual student experiencing difficulty in cultural, social competence, self-management skills, citizenship, preparation for life skills, academic achievement, literacy, interpersonal relationships within or outside of the school, which may impact the individual's susceptibility to gain membership or gang-like activities or both. And now here comes to the program part now. So the prevention intervention program together means specifically designed projects and activities to help at-risk students stay in school. Remember the word specifically as we get going, because this has to be, this is where it's changing a little bit. They really want targeted interventions and preventions. Okay, design projects and activities to help at-risk students stay in school, enhance their cultural and social competence, self-management skills, citizenship, preparation for life skills, academic achievement, literacy, interpersonal relationship skills required for school completion and full participation in society. Okay, you probably have seen some common threads, right? I mean, there's some common things to the prevention, intervention, and then the program. So, keeping kids in school, helping with their social, emotional, that's kind of in a nutshell, and their interpersonal relationships so that they can be a productive member of society, stay committed to school, and go from there. All right, I pulled this off of WIRIC 2006 just to kind of define and talk about what we're talking about when we say gang prevention intervention. So this is triangle, as you can see. And I'm not really going to focus on the targeted suppression. I mean, that's a little bit above what we're doing for this grant. But I do want to talk about primary prevention, secondary, and then gang intervention. Primary prevention, this is something for all youth. So let's take a school, everybody in the school, what's a primary thing that we can do to help prevention just to everybody. Throw it out to the whole school, the whole mass. Then you've got secondary prevention comes in, so it's that next layer of prevention for high-risk youth. And I had somebody ask me once, what do you define as high risk? Well, really that's up to you and the needs of your program community, because high risk in Davis County might look different than high risk in Provo County or San Juan County. I mean, everybody's dealing with different issues, so that's really where your needs assessment will come into play, and we'll talk about that. The next one, so you've got your high risk secondary prevention that's more targeted for high risk youth only. And then it goes to the gang intervention, which is for gang involved youth. So the youth that you have identified that are into the gangs, knowing what's going on, participating, they're identified, and what are you doing to intervene there to try to help them? So that's kind of, I mean, you can look more into that. I'm not going to really go into more than that right now, but just to show you the different layers of prevention and intervention. Yes?
I was thinking for to kind of translate, is this on?
I don't know. I can't hear you. Nope, we can't hear you.
To translate that into the multi-tiered system of support language. So like all youth could be tier 1, right? And then the high-risk youth could be tier 2 for sure.
Correct.
And that gang-involved youth could be still part of tier 2 if they're just barely getting in, right? They're what they would call wannabes or just barely starting. The easier ones to pluck away, and then the ones that are gang involved but already serious and chronic offenders, and those would be the tier 3 level.
Tier 3, exactly.
And so I'm thinking like this gang grant would probably be more the tier 1, tier 2.
Correct,
level.
yeah.
Okay.
That's why, I mean, this is important. I didn't want to, thank you for clarifying. It's not to say we don't have this or need it, but really where we're at is the, level 1, 2, tier 1, 2. So
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the clarification. Did somebody else have something, hand over here? No? Okay. Well, yeah, sorry, the microphone.
That's okay. Are the districts here know what to look for in the gang involvement youth? Have they had training in that?
Every district, to my knowledge, I don't know that as a whole. I think most districts have, from what I've been told. Is that true? Would you guys, yes? Yes. Okay. Absolutely. And then we're going to get into that too, because I have some professional goals to help with that. So, okay, thank you. Any more questions for now? Okay. All right, examples of research-based programs. Okay, now I want to clarify these are examples. This doesn't mean that this is it. I just pulled some of the ones that I've read, research, studied, so I don't want you to think this is the end-all, be-all. This is just to give you ideas, so please take that with a grain of salt with what I'm saying. So primary prevention, going back to that kind of tier 1, like he was saying, tier 2, things like that. This is tier 1, but this is just an example, one example. The gang resistance education and training. And I will tell you, this isn't the meeting to go into all of these things. That's why I gave you the PowerPoint. There's some links. You can look things up. I mean, that's just not the purpose of this meeting, but I just wanted to give people ideas because I know I've had a lot of people say, we don't even know what a program would be or look like. So we can talk later with that, but just so you know, we're not going to spend a lot of time. So the Gang Resistance Education and Training, which is another acronym, the GREAT program, is a school-based gang prevention curriculum that has demonstrated evidence of effectiveness. Law enforcement officers offer middle school students 13-week curriculum that describes the dangers of gang involvement. The lesson content emphasizes cognitive behavioral training, social skills development, refusal skills, and conflict resolution. They offer elementary school curriculum, summer programming, and training for families. I know this program's expensive. I mean, so that's the thing. There's lots to it, but that's why I just wanted to give you, like I said, some examples. Another example of a secondary prevention is the aggressive replacement training. It consists of a 10-week, 30-hour cognitive behavioral program administered to groups of 8 to 12 adolescents. During these 10 weeks, youth typically attend 3 one-hour sessions per week on skill streaming, anger control, and moral reasoning. Okay, now this is kind of what Moises was talking about before, is there's some that can cross over to that secondary prevention and intervention level. The Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, the OJJDP, Comprehensive Gang Model, does that. That's kind of why I put it into both. It's a strategic planning process that helps communities develop a continuum of gang prevention, intervention, and suppression programs and strategies. So, like I said, there's more to it, but that's why I kind of grouped it into both so you could see that. Okay, now we have a local gang prevention intervention program, and I'm glad we have somebody here from Choose Gang Free. But Chris Murphy, she's not here. She's out of town at a different training today. But I had asked her if I could include this because this is another resource that is a local, and I know there's many schools that have it and love it. And like I said, I'm just throwing out just like another option. So here's their website. I just copied this off the website, so I know you can't really see it. Hopefully you can see it in your PowerPoint. But they have a set curriculum program. Chris told me that she would be willing to, like when we talk about partnering, they have the curriculum, but it would be mandatory for them to come train because it's great if you have the tools, but if you don't know how to use them, you know, it's kind of dead weight. Doesn't matter. So there's, like I said, if you want to talk to people after, there's people that use them, and it's been great. I've been excited to work with them so far, and I'm getting to learn more about them. So is there anything you want to say with that?
Yeah, with this program, we actually come to your school and teach the teachers and
Sorry, I know it's...
With our program, we usually come to your schools and teach not only the teachers, but any administrative, and then also the parents side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we, obviously, whatever clues you guys have as far as intervention, kids that you know, we come on site and help those kids out. I'm actually on site all the time, so that way the kids can see who I am, what I represent, and why I do what I do. I'm very honest with them. I don't, play games. I'm really honest and upfront with them, and that makes them more interested as of staying away. Or like, man, I got family members that are, and they start opening up. So this program is awesome. I come from Portland, Oregon, and we have a huge gang problem over there. And this one is, you guys are getting just as bad. So
Thank
catch
you.
them while they're young, right?
Did somebody else have a hand question? Okay, thank you. Thanks for waiting for the microphone. The people online appreciate it.
Okay, with the information you just shared,
Yes.
on the on-site intervention that you just mentioned, so are you running groups or how does that look? And how much time are you in the schools?
So we do run groups. We have, like right now, we have, what school was it? One of the elementary schools that contacted me. They want their parents to be trained to watch out what to look for, and then also the teachers. So I have 2 different meetings. And then when I'm on site, it's just for me to so when we give a 12-week, let's say a 12-week session for the kids in the school, then I stay on site so that way they know who I am. And then they come after recess, I hang out with them. I just kind of, so they know who I am. They ask questions to the teachers. The teachers first talk about self-esteem and peer pressure. And then it rolls into other things. Did I answer your question?
You did, and is this an evidence-based program and model?
Oh, yes. It's been going on for quite some time now. Yeah. I have business cards just in case you guys need them.
Yeah, and thank you. And I was going to say that if you want to talk after, and want to network and talk to people, that's what I built in some time at the end, so you can hopefully talk and mingle and go from there. So thank you for the information. Okay, and then this is just like the other slides. This is just an information page. I kind of wanted to show you, it came from the Juvenile Justice Bulletin, but these are other websites you can go to, the nationalgangcenter.gov. You can just see it, to look at different programs and to see and make sure, and they'll say if they're research-based. So I just wanted to give you some tools that you could look at to go to find what's out there, what's working, what's not working, and go from there. Okay, before we actually get to the application, so don't open that yet, I'm going to run through a little bit again what the law says, and then we'll get into the heart of the application. So the application, what it's supposed to be there, it says school districts may submit a single district-wide proposal. That's where that answer came in for the one person that wanted to write for their own school. They can't. And then, let's see, they provide for distribution of funds to individual schools. So let's say, I'm going to throw Ogden, I don't know if you're here, but Ogden School District, let's say they want to write for 2 junior highs, 3 elementaries, and a high school. Then that way they can write them into the grant, specifically targeted for them, but it just comes in as one proposal. So does that make sense? Okay. Provide explanations of prevention of programs and intervention activities and strategies for individuals. And then charter schools may submit an independent or joint proposal. So independently, charter schools are their own entity, and that's in the law. School districts or charter schools or a charter consortia may utilize up to 10% of their funding under the rule for specific purposes. Now this one, we'll get into this more with the grant, but I did want to talk about this for a minute. I know this has been some of the concern, is that the 10% has not always been held true. And so I needed to bring that up again, that administrative oversight, professional development for licensed or non-licensed for people who work directly with the prevention intervention activities. And the key with this is directly. I think there's been some things that have come in from charges and things trying to be billed for, people that help with it, maybe on the administrative level, but they're not necessarily in the weeds, so to say, working with people. So you just want to make sure as you propose your budget that you just make sure it's within those limits. So, and then 10% of that covers professional and technical services. We can go over that if you want. And then proposal applications provided by USBE. That's what I did, is I gave you a copy and then I'll also email it out electronically. So I fulfilled my part with that. And then the awards per school shall be based on funds available. And like I said, as far as we know, there's been funding ever since, but every year is a different year. I've learned that this year, so with my other programs. So 1.2 million, unless we hear different, but that's the proposed, that's what we've seen come out of the legislation from the ears every year. Okay, here's some changes, some additions. First one. This is going to be a 3-year grant cycle. What that means, and I know this is new, but as this is really to streamline with what we're doing. I've been talked to about outcomes. And I know it's really hard from running programs. I ran programs for many years, and year to year, you get into one year and then it's over. And it's like, if I had another year or two, I might have been able to do more. So we've talked about this, and to streamline it, and with advice from other people in the department, that's the direction we're moving. So what that means is that based on funding, so as long as the funding is there every year, it will be renewed. There might be some kind of application, like a renewal application, but we'll work out those details when it comes. But if you write this grant this year and you get it, you will be guaranteed upon funding for the next 3 years. So, yes. Good, I'm glad. Some of these I know are going to rock some people.
To make sure I understand,
Yes.
so the funding, like the 80,000 per school, that's per year or
Yeah, so
for
I'll get
3
to,
years?
I'll get to that. Sorry. Yes. Forget those. I know I should have had them come up. But yes, you're right. It will be every year. So, okay, so 3 years based on the funding. You can write up for 6 sites. This is a big change, and I will tell you, and I know, I can't tell you how many hours I've spent looking through past applications and seeing. I can just tell you it's been all over the map. We've had 19 schools, one district on $100,000. We had 2 schools, one district, $223,000. We've had, that's kind of the gamut. So what we've looked for, what my directive was, is we need to show some outcomes. We need it to be targeted. The questions were to me, how can these 19 schools be using $100,000? What are the outcomes with that money? Well, I don't know. I haven't been here, but I don't know the answer. And I don't know running programs. I don't know how it is. So that's why we decided that to be consistent with the other grants in our office, 6 sites. So what that means, and I'm not saying, please don't read into what I'm saying. I'm not saying 19 schools in your district don't need the money. I'm not saying that because I don't know. Every district, every place is different. But what we do know is that there are certain schools, certain areas that need the money more. And that's what we want, is for you to really dig in and find out where are our needs the greatest. What sites do we really need to target? So you don't have to write for 6. If you have 1 school, if you have 2 schools, great. But if you have, you can write up to 6. So that's probably the biggest, I mean, these are all big changes, but that's the second biggest change. And then this, we're putting a cap on 80,000 per site per year. So to answer your question, if you write for 6 schools and you get funded for all 6 for that year, you get 80. If you choose to ask for 80,000 per site, then you will get 80,000 per site. Now that being said too, I mean, please know that the grant reviewers are going to, I don't want to say scrutinize, but scrutinize the budget, because if you ask for 80,000 and they read your proposal and they say, I'm not really sure what they're doing with the 80,000, they'll either come back and ask you questions, or they'll just say, we're not sure how the need meets the amount they're asking. So you can write up to 80,000. Now I realize 1.2 million, okay, we've talked long and hard about this. 1.2 million divided by, say, if every site got 80,000, that's not a lot of sites. And we know that. But the purpose is, like I said, is the outcomes. They want to see, what are you doing? Some people, some areas do need 80,000. They need a full-time person there because of what's happening. So that's why we decided, that's why the team decided that's what we're going to do. You know, we might change it in years to come. We don't know. We don't know how much money it needs to be effective. But that's why we want you to decide as a team. I mean, some sites really might need $20,000 to accomplish what they're doing. So you can go up to 80,000 per site. The other question I had asked was, well, as we were talking in a team, I mean, this is just newly released today, but can one site, so I came from Davis District. I'm going to use myself as an example. I had after-school programs. I had 6 different after-school programs. So in those after-school programs, I could tell you 2 sites, if I was doing after-school programming, there was 2 that had higher needs than others. I probably could have used 80,000 for that. The other 6, I wouldn't have. I mean, I didn't need it. So you can write for the amount that you think per school. I mean, it's up to you if that's confusing or not. I mean, I don't know. We'll get into the application. But let's say if you think 4 sites could use, you know, $40,000 based on what you're asking, you can write for that. And then the other 2 could be up to 80,000. So you can split it. It's just, you just have to really show it in your needs assessment, and that's what we'll get to. Yes?
So Kim, once you write those for each individual sites, are those able to change over the 3-year period, or are we locked in for that amount for the 3 years?
Oh, for the schools?
Correct.
We talked about this, and I think what we decided, based on other grants, is that we can, we don't want, I mean, locked in is for the first year, you know, you can move 10% without changing, and otherwise you have to do a budget adjustment to me that we'll get into. But for, year 2, you'll have a new budget that you'll fill out, and there's room for us to talk and say, because we don't want you to, I mean, if you put $80,000 in and then you find out that some school, you know, that school didn't need it. It wasn't as high risk as you thought or whatever, there's chance that we can move stuff around. So as long as you have that grant, I mean, then we can play with it, so to say, to see. But every year there will be a new budget adjustment. Did that answer your question? Yes. Okay. Any questions with that? Okay. All right. Now the other thing in the law, and I put it in here, R277-436 3G, it does say specifically in there, I wrote it just like this, priority shall be given to applications reflecting interagency and intra-agency collaboration. So the way we've done with other grants, we do like a competitive priority points, and usually there's more, but with this, we're just following what's in the law. So there's only one, basically, priority point, which is this inter and intra-agency. So inter is if you decide to go out and work with Shoes Gang for a year, whoever else. I mean, that would be an inter-agency collaboration. Now there's room in the grant to talk about it. We're gonna go over that. But then the actual, what you have to get these extra 5 points. So there's 100 points possible with the grant when we do the review of it. But you possibly, let's say you get 100 points possible. It's possible to have 105 out of 100. Because if you have, we're going to say an MOU in place, Memorandum of Understanding. So that means you have gone to an outside agency that you feel like it would be a really good fit with your agency. If you write an MOU together, or however you do that, but this is what I'm giving as a school. This is what the outside agency is giving as the agency, how we're going to work together. Just a letter, MOU. That's all we need. That will come in as an attachment. If you have that and it shows it, I want to make sure it's different because many years we've done letters of collaboration or support. Those are good. We're glad that people support programs, but we've learned, and I've been working with programs. Letters of support only go for so long. I mean, anybody can say, great job, we support you. Yes, this would change the world. But then when it comes down to, well, can you come to the meeting? Can you support us and do this and this? Sometimes people aren't there. So MOUs is kind of the new, I shouldn't say new, it's been the wave of what we've been doing, but really targeted, what are you going to do to help us? What are we going to do to help you? How are we build this together? Do you have anything? Yes.
I just have I have a question from the folks online.
Okay.
And this goes back towards the sites, but I think it also has to do with the interagency collaboration.
Okay.
We have some charter schools that are interested in writing, but they also, so they would be one site, and they want to know if they can write and include other district schools that are in their neighborhood to put on that application. So in essence, it would be an interagency collaboration between the charter and the district, the surrounding district, and for 6 sites. So one would be the charter and then 5 neighborhood schools per se.
Yes. I don't
But as
see
long as there's one fiscal agent.
That's what I was going to just say. As long as it's clear who the fiscal agent is, yes. But just make sure we have to be clear exactly who it is that we're awarding the grant to. So yes. Okay, we'll get into more of this, but that's it, just to know. So the intra-agency, I'll just tell you the points. There's a section in the grant where we talk about intra-agency, how you're going to work together. But inter is where we want the MOU. So it will say that in there, but just so you know, I don't want you to stress like how do you get an MOU from my next door neighbor in the classroom or whatever. We know you're going to explain how that's going to work intra-agency. It's the inter, the outside. How are we going to partner? Is it with the law enforcement? Is it with local programs? There's so many things that you can do. Yes, Moises. My favorite part of this.
With the MOU, especially when you have multiple agencies working together, you get the legal departments of all the agencies working together, and that can sometimes take years to create an MOU. So if there's history that has shown collaboration between multiple agencies, would that suffice for the extra 5 points? For example, if you bring a law enforcement agency, the Utah Juvenile Courts, a school district, a nonprofit, an elected official.
Yeah.
That's going to take a while to get an MOU.
Exactly. You're right. You're right. I don't know. I'm trying to.
If you want my 2 cents.
Yes, we want your 2 cents on this.
So we spend a lot of time in grant meetings talking about the difference between an MOU and a letter of support. And so, Kim, I don't know how you feel about this, but that's a really good point, Moises,
It is a good
because it takes a long time to get an MOU developed. Kim, I would personally say as long as the letter of collaboration is extremely detailed, spells everything out, and isn't just a paragraph of fluffy frills, because that doesn't tell the grant readers anything.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Document, no fluffy frills.
Minimum fluffy frills and lots of meat and potatoes to that collaborative letter. We're going to come back to you and say, this doesn't tell us anything. We need amounts. We need specific services to be provided by both parties. So kind of what you'd put in the MOU, but in a collaborative letter without signatures. Does that help? Is that better?
Yeah, thanks, Moises, and thanks, Lisa.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah, perfect. Because you're right. We don't want to. This isn't to hinder. We're not trying to hurt people. So yeah, absolutely. Okay. So now's the time to pull out the lovely application itself. So I will tell you a couple things before we dive into this. This is not an application that goes into the UCA, the Utah Consolidated Application. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry, you're glad. If you do know what I'm talking about, then yeah, so this does not go in there. This is a paper copy, so to say. I gave you a paper copy, but I will email it out so you can fill it out electronically. But this will actually be submitted in person or mailed in. We'll go to that, but I just wanted to make sure you knew. No UCA, nothing like that. Okay, this is, and I'm just going to kind of pull it up and we'll go through it. Yes. Yeah. Oh, microphone.
So just with the limited funding, based on this being a mandatory bidders conference, can you tell us how many districts are attending the bidders conference, or roughly?
How many districts or programs? I want to say we do have people online too. So I want to say last time I counted there was 23.
I was thinking in the 20s. The other part
with
is
charter schools and school districts.
it's mandatory to get the information.
Yeah.
It's not mandatory to get the information this morning because this is live streaming and it's also recorded. So there might be some LEAs that are going to watch it next week. So that it's also hard to gauge that way. Right. They didn't have to be here in person or watching it live. They could watch the recorded version. We just wanted to make sure they got the information.
And I will say though, I mean, to answer that too, I had a lot of people feedback and ask because there was 2 school districts that were on spring break, so I've sent them the link to watch. I mean, I made out a deal because I'm not going to make them miss their vacation to come to this on a Friday afternoon. But exactly like Lisa said, I want to say it was 23 to 25. So, and I'm pretty confident it's around there if we're going to a safe number. And we'll dive into this too. Before this, she brought up a good point. So did you guys ever have to do, just raise your hand if it was a yes, a letter of intent for this grant? Okay. All right. For those of you that know what that is, great. For those of you that don't, that goes back to the point of what kind of, I think, what you were asking. There is going to be, and we'll get to the deadline for that, there's a letter of intent that I will email out. It's just a form with some information saying, yep, we are, as a district, as a school, a charter school, we are going to apply. We intend to apply for the grant. So once we have those in, there's a date it has to be in, then we have a really good idea. Are we talking, there's 6 organizations that's going to apply, 24? I mean, we'll know by then. So you have to have that letter of intent in order to be considered to apply. So hopefully that, and then we'll know if there's exactly, 12 people or 20 people or however many. So, yes. You guys are good with this microphone. The last group wasn't so good.
In regard to the letter of intent,
yes,
it is sometimes extremely difficult to get signatures from the superintendent. Is that going to be required of this letter of intent?
No.
Thank you.
My letter of intent is, I was going to say, maybe I'm supposed to have signatures. Yeah. No, this is just, thank you for asking that. No, this letter of intent is something I created. And it basically just says, we intend to write, this is how many sites we're going to write for, the contact person, email. So yeah, I mean, it's nothing.
It was really designed so that we could tell you all what you're up against to size up the competition, but also so we can get grant readers. We need to get grant readers ready for the reading and scoring process. And if we don't know if we're going to receive 3 applications or 30, that makes a big difference. So it's really for planning purposes for all of us, but it's not, an official document.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad. I don't want you to worry about that. I didn't even think of that. So for other ones, have you had to have signatures? I'm curious. Is that true? Other letter of intents, you have to have superintendent signatures?
No, we've not used letter of intent.
Yeah.
The final draft of the actual
Which the grant you will, but not the letter of intent. Okay.
Takes a while.
Forever. Okay. All right. Well, let's dive into the application. We're going to go page by page. I'm not going to read everything unless you have a question, because I know you can read, and I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but I am going to highlight the things that I feel need to be highlighted. So the first page here, I don't know how well this is going to work on here, but we'll try it. You have it in front of you, and the people online, you also should have, I emailed it out to you, so you should have a copy. So the application goes out to districts, charter schools today. This is kind of the timeline. The letter of intent, like I said, there is a reason I didn't bring it today. I'll tell you why. Because sometimes, I don't know, you go to things and you feel like, I'm here, I got to sign it, I'm going to do it. But you might need to go back and really talk to some people and really formulate, is this worth it? Is this what we want to do? So that's why I'm going to email it out to you in a day or two. I mean, I really want you to think about it. So April 14th, so as you can see, you've got a little time to talk about it, but it will be due April 14th by 11:59. I put a time because I always have somebody ask me that. You can send it at 11:59 and it will be fine that night. So you email that to me electronically, just the email, you'll send back the form, and I'll let you know. I try to always let people know when I got your stuff. I mean, I really try to do that. So usually if you don't hear back from me on something like that, maybe assume I didn't get it, because I'll always say, hey, thanks, or have a good day, or something, because I can't stand sending something and wondering if somebody got it. So if you don't hear from me, please let me know. Okay, May 10th, the application is due by 5 o'clock. No electronic submissions will be accepted. So this is something we do with a lot of other paper copy grants in this office. So this will be a change, I know from before. You must either deliver it in person, so drive it here, front desk, there's the check-in visitor desk. They'll time stamp it, write down, we've received it, or you can mail it in. I mean, if you're coming from Nebo or wherever, I mean, I don't expect you to drive it up. So, but it does need to be here in this office by May 10th, okay, by 5 o'clock. I'll use Lisa's bill. I asked her about, we're going to use the Office of Child Care Grants as examples of this. So I did put in red, submissions either mailed to USBE or received in person must be received no later than 5 on Wednesday, May 10th. Applications received after this will not be considered for funding. So I just want to be clear on this. I have seen, we work closely with Office of Child Care with different grants, and I have been there before when it was due at 5 and somebody got there at 5:05 because they had a flat tire. We've heard stories of, what else? I mean, there's every traffic. I got caught in a traffic jam. We've heard. I know. So there's, I mean, it's happened. So what we like to try to tell people with other grants is, and I sometimes am a procrastinator, Lisa can tell you that, I get it. But especially with these grants, if you maybe plan to get them here, like if you're gonna drive them here, let's say, maybe plan on, in your head, I mean, I've done this myself. I mark off the 14th and I put due the 12th or something, because then I know, like I tricked myself to say, has to be there the 12th. But knowing that if something happens, I get a flat tire, I get a speeding ticket, I get something, that I still, I can get it here in time. Mailing in's a little bit different. I mean, if I were you and mailing it in, I would make sure that maybe, I mean, I don't want you to spend $1 million, but, overnight FedEx, that's something that and then I will confirm that I received it. Same thing. I mean, I will always confirm, so you're not wondering, hey, I did mail it, never got here. So I will always confirm that I received it. So basically, I'm just saying to prepare and plan ahead, make sure that it is here. Because we have had that. I mean, there's been things where people, please let me submit it, and we've turned down everybody else after 501. We've already told other people, no, sorry, so we can't let the person who, I mean, maybe has a really valid reason why it's late, like even more so than the others, but we can't do it. So I just want to drill that home that it has to be here in our hot hand, 5 o'clock on that day. Okay, May 11th through May 31st, we will have our team put together to review the applications. I will tell you that each grant will be read at least 3 times. I'm hoping for 5, that each grant's read 5 times. The reason for that is the more people that read and have opinions of what the programs are and the strategies and assessments, I think the better. So the goal is 5, but it also depends on who we get, because we don't just like to pick anybody out of the crowd. These are people that we really feel like know the program, know the area, the grant. So we want a good team to review. And then in law, it says that by July 1st, you will know if you received the grant or not. So I put June 30th because that's a Friday. And I will be honest with you, I'm hoping to let you know a lot sooner than that. But we're just kind of doing the law, the same thing. But I'm hoping to let you know beginning of June is the plan. And then there's my contact information, phone number, email. Oh, it locked me out. Does it have to? Sorry, I don't know. It's up on my screen. I'll let Lisa do her magic. Okay, so if you go to page 1, just flip over. Like I said, I'm not going to go through every little word, but I am going to just highlight. This is the cover sheet. So this is the charter, thanks Lisa, the charter school or school district, okay? Who they are, talks about the beginning date of the project, ending date of the project, which is usually July 1st to June 30th. Project director and immediate supervisor. I will tell you, if you want to make a note, I mean, I should have probably made this more clear, but the project director is the one who will receive, you got the grant, you didn't. You need this, you need to explain this, we need more information, please clarify ABC. So make sure that that project director, whoever that person is the right person for contact. And then we like the immediate supervisor's name on there because this happened to me when I first started. I was sending emails to all these people who I got back saying, oh, they don't work here anymore. So that's just if there's a change of something with, you know, direction, movement. Lots of districts have movement, charter schools have change. So we just want to make sure that the right people are on there. Okay, there's a line that says, oh, what's it doing? It doesn't like me. Thanks. Thanks, guys, for being patient as we go through this here. Okay, total amount requested for funding. So you'll see what I was talking about with the breakdown per site. Don't worry about that right now. Right now, we want to know your grand total for 1 year, okay? This isn't for 3 years. Each year, you'll do a new budget. So this is just 1 year, what's your total that you're asking for however many sites you've asked for. Any questions with that? Okay, so that's total. And then there's a space for us, so you don't need to worry about that. Program assurances. I'm not going to go over in detail these. I kind of hit a few of them. If you have questions, you can call me, but I just basically wanted to go over a few things. It talks about the application, that it's been authorized. Like I said, that goes back to just making sure that your school district or charter school is responsible for the funds. This is a reimbursement grant. So what that means is you spend the money up front, and then you'll send in a reimbursement. And I was going to go over a reimbursement form, but I thought there's no point to do that if you don't have to worry about it. So we'll have a separate meeting. If you receive the grant, we'll have a basically new meeting for everybody. Even if you're a past grantee, this will be a new grant meeting, and we'll cover all that stuff. So this is a reimbursement grant. You spend the money, you'll fill out a form, submit it back. We do like to have it at least twice, if not 3 times a year. We can't require that. We understand that every district, every charter school does things different, but usually we do find that people like their money. So if you can submit them, and usually it's a business administrator that does that, but every organization is different. So we'll get in more to that, but just so you know, we do like the reimbursements to come in as much as you can, but we can't require it. And then it just talks about with the insurances that you're going to follow your objectives and everything that you've put in the proposal, and that it's an equitable program for all. I mean, all those things that are important and key to a function of a grant. Is there any questions? Do you want me to go through that? Are we good that you read it, and if you have questions, call me? Okay. Oops. I need my mouse. Okay, here's the signature page that somebody was talking about. So the reason for this, and I know in every grant I've ever had to submit myself, they do ask for this. And the reason is because it basically is bonding, like a bonded document that yes, we know, yes, we approve it to be turned in. If we get it, we agree to everything that we've said to do. So the district superintendent or charter school director, I know charter schools have different names for their executive director. I mean, I've heard everything. So whoever that top person is, that's who we're talking about. A business administrator, like I said, in a charter school, that might be the same person. So put them again. And then the project director is the person that kind of, I don't want to say the feet on the ground, but kind of that person it might be one of you in the room, it might be somebody, that you're over, but that person who's going to oversee the project. Not individual sites. Let me clarify that. Okay, so if there's 6 sites, I don't need 6 different names. It might be just the person who oversees the 6 different people. Okay. All right, so the abstract. We are on page 4. The abstract is worth 5 points. So each section tells you how much they're worth. And it says, provide a summary for the proposed project, include how proposed project will enhance the district's charter safe and drug-free schools and communities comprehensive plan in relationship to gang activities. I left that in there. I talked to Travis and the past people that have written grants. This is very similar language to what's happened before. And I realized charter schools might have something different. So if you don't have that plan, I don't want you to think you can't do that. But every school, charter school, every district has a different plan. And that's how it ties in, especially with the law. It talks about, the violence, the drugs, things like that. So whatever you can do, it's just your abstract proposal with that. You describe how the proposed project will provide for gang prevention and intervention both on and off school grounds. So what that means is, you might have a center next door to your school that the kids go hang out after school. You might be offering services at that center next door. So that's what that is referring to. Okay, so 5 points. There is no limit. I will tell you that too. We went back and forth on, do we want a page limit? Do we not? I decided this time not to do a limit because everybody's needs different. Like I said, there might be an area that needs 3/4 of a page to describe their abstract. Somebody else might need a paragraph. So there's no page limit. You can turn a 100-page application, but you don't need to. I'll just say that. We're fine if it's not 100 pages.
We had a grant last year for another program, and most of the applications were 100+ pages. So next time we're gonna have a page limit.
Yeah, that's what. Sorry, it was an inside joke because it was a lot of pages.
You did say abstract.
Huh? Yeah, abstract.
Yes.
Good point.
Exactly.
The definition of abstract is short on that. Oh, this doesn't want to stay. Okay, statement of need. We are on page 5 for those online. This is worth 25 points. This section I do want to talk about for just a minute, probably longer, focus on. So it talks about the following 3 pages. We just put 3 pages into write. Like I said, please don't think that means you have to do 3 pages. You do what you need to make sure you've answered the questions. If you can answer them with the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, so section A, if it makes sense, and then answer the question, B, answer the question, that's a lot easier for the grant readers. It's very clear because they might have a question and say you didn't answer it, and you go, yeah, I did. In C, I put, you know what I mean? So it just helps us. So if that's a way for you to comprehensively write it, it would make more sense to do so. All right, A, briefly describe description of the school district population. B, identify specific target population focus. C, using data from the previous 3 years, describe and document the gang issues to be addressed. Okay, that's where I want to talk about. Using data from previous 3 years. Okay, if you've had the grant, hopefully you have stuff to show that you can write about. If you don't, though, because that's the thing, if you haven't written, this is new. There's other ways you can get some data to talk about what's happening or what's not happening, why the need is there. This all goes back to the need. You want to show why is this so important to continue. This isn't a continuation grant, but just if you've had the grant in the past, we've had it, it's done A, B, C, D for our schools. This is why we want to continue. Okay, show us the need. Why has it been successful? What are the outcomes? What are the measures? What are your objectives? If you haven't had the grant before, tell us the need of why you need it. Use law enforcement data, sharp data. You can use, anything like that. Whatever you can get your hands on to show, our kids are this in academics, this with drugs, violence, whatever. So just because you haven't had the grant doesn't mean you can't answer that question. It's to show us for the last 3 years, what's your school community, what's been happening there. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, D, identify relevant risk and protective factors the project will address, including data from SHARP, like we talked about, district incident reports, local law enforcement, and other data. You don't have to use these. These are just examples to kind of get your brain going of what you can use. E, describe intra-agency collaboration. That's working with other school districts, charter schools that are at-risk programs. And I put the little asterisk priority points available just to remind you that that's where those extra points are going to come from. Now, we are not doing the intra in an MOU, remember, but to describe that, I mean, that fulfills the part of the law. So that's why I just wanted to make sure you knew. I mean, that's key. Priority points for intra, inter. We'll get to the inter in a minute. F, describe how this funding will, quote, fill the gaps in services. So what is this money going to do? How can this help your school, your program? What does it look like? What's the need of, I mean, I keep saying it, and I know I'm saying it over and over, but because I've read so many grants for so many different projects, after school, poverty, I read an ESL one. I mean, I've read a lot of grants for people, and I can tell you that the number one thing continually that I see where people, I don't want to say mess up, but don't answer the question is the statement of need. They don't show their statement of need. And I think that's why I just keep stressing that, because I think that's a huge part of this. So please make sure you're answering those questions, why you need it, and then we'll get to what you're going to do with it. Okay, G, describe how other funding resources will be utilized in the project. So what I mean by that is there other, other money, other fundings that you're using from districts, charter schools, other sustainability things that are going to help your program succeed. Any questions with that? Okay. If you go to page 8, goals, objectives, evaluation, we left this the same as before for those of you that have written. Oh, gosh. Okay. This is worth 25 points too. So this is the first column, goals, strategies, target group, theory of change, short-term outcomes, long-term impacts. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, and I can talk to you individually if you want, just because we still have a little bit to do before the end of the day. But these are the goals, to address the level of the risk or protective factors, okay, in your community, in your school. Strategies, the following program activities will include. So hopefully the goal of this is that it's going to align, right? I mean, you're going to say, what is our goal? What are the strategies? How are we going to get there? Who is it targeting? So is it that primary intervention, secondary intervention, or tier 1, 2? Theory of change, it's expected that this activity, I know I'm blocking in with the microphone, sorry. Theory of change, it's expected that this activity will lead to changes in these factors, blank, which will lead to the attainment of program goals. Short-term outcomes, we will know these changes have occurred if, so how do you know? Do you have some kind of outcome evaluation? How are you measuring it? What's the strategy that you're using? And then in the end, how do we know that the short term became the long term? Okay, we can go over that more, but I just kind of wanted to hit that those are, as far as goals and objectives, we did it in that chart because I think it reached what they were trying to do before, and so we just kept that the same. Yes? Oh, no, you're good.
Sorry to wake you up. For long-term, do you all have a specific time frame? What long-term means? Is that a year? Is that 5 years, 10 years?
Well, no, okay. For the purpose of this, we have not defined that. And the reason for it is because the change of the time frame too. Because a lot of times it was a year. I mean, that's what a lot of people from the past, when I looked at the past applications, they only had a year. So they would say long-term is the year. By the end of the year, what are we going to reach? What are we going to meet? So we didn't define it. I would say, I mean, I think it's a good idea to have, by the end of the year, what are some things that are going to happen? But I also don't think it's a bad idea to say by the end of 3 years, because now you have 3 years to try, show the outcomes. So maybe what are we going to do by year 1, by year 2, by year 3? But we didn't define it because everybody's different. So good question. Thank you. All right. Any questions with that? All right, we're going to kind of move through this. Here's program operation and activities, 30 points. Okay, this is another area where it's key to make sure you answer I say that, I mean, you want to answer all the questions, but these are the two areas, the statement of need and the program operation activities. These are the two places I always see it not answered to the best of the ability. So it says, describe the proposed project on the following 3 pages. Once again, you don't have to use 3 pages. Use what you need to answer the question. This description should include the following. A, how project resources will utilize research-based programs or strategies and activities to meet the program goals. B, description of staff roles, qualifications, how they are appropriate for the proposed program. C, clear description of each interagency collaborator and their role in the project. So a description there, and then I have highlighted, it says priority points available, provide a MOU attached to this application. So just like what we talked about, I mean, don't spend days trying to hunt people down, but as long as it's clear what we're gonna do. I mean, even if you talk to the person, just say, let's say it's the local law enforcement, okay? If you talk to the sergeant or chief of police, somebody, and say, you know, what are you gonna do? Can you help us patrol the grounds twice after school from 3 to 6? I mean, I don't know what it is, but I mean, if you have that, you know, just a written MOU between the two of you, that's what we need. We don't need signatures on things like that. We just wanna make sure it's written, like she said earlier. And that will just be an attachment to the application when it comes in. Yes? Oh, yes, thank you.
Is it working? Hello. With the priority points that are available, there's 5 total. Is that going to be divided specifically like 3 minutes for interagency, or not 3 minutes, 3 points for interagency, 2 points for intra, or is it just 5 depending on how well we present it, or
Good
how
question.
is that determined?
So what we talked about is the MOU specifically, the attachment will be the 5, I know this is hard because it's hard to split the 5 points as far as the application. Because the intra there's a section before for the intra, when you're scored on that, like in the rubric when we go through it, you're scored on that anyway and you're given points for it, which is the same for inter, but we're making that MOU, the interagency, that's worth 5 points. So that's what the 5 points is going to be. Does that make sense? So the attachment MOU interagency is the 5 priority points extra. Does that make sense? Yes. Hey, I don't like the microphone either. They didn't tell me I had to do this when I started.
So if you're attaching the 5 points to the memorandum of understanding, then help me understand the description of what our community partners are going to do is different. Because if we're not necessarily looking for the signature, will that letter be eligible for those 5 extra points? Or does it have to have the signatures?
Okay, sorry, maybe I said it wrong. I see what you're saying. So in the, yeah, I'm glad you asked that. Maybe I said it backwards. In the actual application, the summary, where it says, let me read it so we're all on the same page. Priority point, let's see, clear description of interagency. So there is where you will write what you're going to do the description. The letter, it might be, the description might be a little bit more detailed. I don't know, however that looks. And then it's the signatures from, but it could be, I mean, like I said, we don't have to get the chief of police. It's whoever you're meeting with to do. So the MOU should have the signatures between 2 of you saying this is what we're going to do, how we're going to work together.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
If we're working with more than one agency, how many attachments do you want? Or do you
I
want
will
us to
say-
do one and then call it good?
For the purpose of this, no, these are good questions, and these are things we have to flesh out. If you want to attach as many MOUs as you want, you can. For the purpose of the 5 points, you just need 1. I mean, I'm just going to say 1 letter. But what I would do to answer your question is, that's where I definitely would write it in the description. Absolutely, I would flush all that out in there.
Well, because I'm just thinking, like, in my school district, I have more than
Yes.
law enforcement agencies.
Yep,
that does
absolutely.
things for us. And so I'm thinking, do I need
No.
12 law enforcement?
No, for the purpose, and I'm glad you asked that. So is that clear to everybody? So 1 letter, 1 MOU letter with signatures, that's the 5 priority points that you can get above and beyond. And then everything else I would flush out in the application narrative.
Sorry not to beat it, but so is that 5 points for the intra-agency and 5 points for the interagency?
So so with the intra-agency, the only reason we put, I mean, we talked about this, the only reason we put priority points available is because in the law, it says priorities given to intra and inter. It's hard to have an intra MOU. I mean, because you assume you're going to work together, right? So we put that to suffice. I mean, just so it filled it, but you're writing that in the description, so it will be scored in the rubric, but the priority points go to the inter. Does that make sense? I know it is a little confusing. We could do one for intra if you guys want. I thought that was kind of, okay, all right. I mean, I just want to make sure, because it is a little confusing, but we just thought most of your agencies work together to have an MOU and go through that. It's a little tedious, but I do want it to be clear. So.
It needs your password again.
And while Kim's putting her password in, going back to Monica's point, yes, do what you can to write the letter to get the priority points, but don't forget about the narrative section, because put yourself in the grant reader's shoes. They do not know your organization, your community, your partnerships like you do. So put yourself in their shoes. Give your narrative to somebody outside your district or your school or your organization. Have them go through it with a fine-tooth comb. Make sure that that description of those partnerships is so clear and so thoughtful that you're really painting that picture for them.
Okay. Now how do you get back into the? I'll do that. Okay. All right, so page 13. This is a little bit different. For those of you that have seen this before, we are making this page optional, and I'll tell you why we did that. So it says optional page 13 to include. That means it's optional. Just like it says. I mean, I know people see that and go, is she sure? But the reason for that is if you've had programs before, it would not hurt to include that. I mean, who's been on your agency? What have they contribute? You know, get the signatures, find out who's part of it. If you haven't, and you want to start forming one and work on that, I mean, we definitely encourage it. But we realize, I mean, and especially some areas don't have as many people that they could get on board. So we don't want to make that too hard for you yet. I mean, this is kind of a work in progress. So if you have that information, great, submit it. If you don't, it won't be held accountable against you. It won't work against you. So is that clear? It's optional. It's not weight bearing on the score at all. It just adds to your application, you know, just to turn in if you have it. It's more for us to collect. How many people are working with agencies? What are they doing with them? So it's just more information for us. All right. Now I can't scroll down. Oh, that little video sign. Okay, budget summary and narrative. We are on page 14. So here is where you will put the grant request amount. So let me tell you, this is total. This is for all the sites total. So this section is not individual schools. Okay, as far as the breakdown, we'll get there in a minute. This is your total grant request. So if you have $120,000 you're asking for salaries, hypothetically, throughout, let's say you have 4 sites. You'd put $120,000 here. Okay, so this is total, one representation for the whole district or charter. Here it says list by name, each person paid for a salary on project, page 16, 17. We'll get there in just a second. List their amounts, okay? And then the same thing for benefits. So we'll get to that the next page. So salaries, benefits, the total together, professional, technical services, and in the back of this application, it kind of breaks down what that means, because I know professional service, well, who does that include? So there is kind of a summary on the back of what that means, so we'll get to that too. Okay, in the explanation in detail, this is a good idea though, budget summary and narrative, to be as detailed as you can. There is a place when we get to the sites that you're going to say, you know, this is how much we want for this site. This is kind of what we're going to do with it. This is our proposal. But this is the overview for the whole district or charter. So it's good to be as detailed as possible as the whole. You know, are we going to incorporate this prevention component to all the schools? Are we going to do this intervention? This is what we're going to do. These are, I mean, you could even put job descriptions if you wanted in here. I mean, you could put, you know, we're going to have a coordinator to track and do, I mean, I'm just trying to think of things, but track data and do things, work with the kids directly, teaching them this with prevention. I mean, you could put that in, or you could do it as an attachment. that's fine too. If you want to say, see attachment B, and attachment B is a job description, you can attach things like that. So, does that make sense? Any questions on that? Okay. And then we've got, like I said, we'll cover that. Other purchases, travel, supplies and materials. The other category, total direct costs, indirect costs. I left this here. It does work. I'm not familiar with how charter schools do indirect costs, and I know the district I came from, they have, I called my budget person, budget director, and I say, what's the indirect costs? And he'll tell me what it is for the year. It was really easy. So I would fill in the net percent right there and say it's, 6%, whatever. I'm not sure, everybody's different. I'm not sure how that works. So I did give you a place that you can go to that they have created to look for indirect costs if you don't know. But this really, to me, is kind of a last resort, because usually people know if they call their budget director, they know what the indirect cost is. So that's just there to help you if you don't know what it is or how to find it. That gives you an idea. Then there's property and total. Okay, now this goes back to the salaries on the page before, where it said list by name each person paid a salary from this project on page 1617. That's wrong with the pages, I just realized. But this is what it's talking about. So they want to know who it is that you are hiring and for what. I will tell you, so as I've gone through these, there's some things, I'm trying to think of how to say this delicately. There were people and things on here that they said were going to do something, but when the reimbursements came in, and as I've gone through stuff, they haven't matched what this has said. And I'm not talking about even just a person, what they're doing. Like they're teaching facts, a period of facts or something. So those got thrown back, but I just want to make sure that you know that this needs to be very targeted. I mean, that did get denied, just so you know, but that's what I mean. There should be no reason that facts has nothing to do with what your application is here. So just to tell you, I mean, we really want you to be strategic on that. If you don't have a name yet, I mean, I realize, like, if you'll be hiring this person, whatever, but if you can tell me, at least for the time being, what that person's going to do. So they're going to be a 3.9 tracker to, do what, I mean, you don't have to go into detail here with that, but if you put that 3.9 hour tracker, fill in the information, I'm good with that, and then we'll get the names as you hire them. So is that clear? We just want to know what that person will be doing, but if you don't have the name yet, I understand. I mean, you might not even hire people till beginning of fall, depending on what happens. So, yes. Oh, thanks, Cheryl. Oh, thank you, Cheryl. Okay.
Does it even matter?
Oh, there you
I
go.
don't know. I don't know if it matters. Okay, so it says back on page 14 with salaries, local match. Have you covered any information on that?
Okay, with salaries.
Yeah, salaries, budget category, and is there a local match?
Nope, I didn't take that off. It was supposed to come off. So I will send out the clean copy with that. There's no match on this.
Thank you.
No. I thought I cleaned it up, but I missed one. Deb, you got me. So yeah, no match on this. Yeah, I won't go into any more detail with that, but no. Thank you for asking and catching that. You do not need to worry about that. So I will take that off and send it out. Okay, now when we get to page there's so many pages. I'll tell you why that staff and salary benefits. We don't need all those pages. That was for some of the schools that had the 19 sites and things. But don't worry. I mean, just fill out what you need. And if you have one line on there, I mean, some people might have one line filled out and don't think, oh my gosh, I didn't fill out the rest. Don't worry. We just kept it in there for people might want to break it down per site, per page. So we left it that way. Okay. This is where a little bit of change has happened to the format. So here's where you can write up to 6 sites, like we said. So we've just numbered them. Okay, there's 1 page per site. So number one, school name and contact information. So you put the school name that you're going to apply for, the address, city zip, telephone number, grade levels at that school, the name of a school contact, who's the best person there for the contact, the title, and then here you're going to put the funds requested for the site. So here's where you'll put Grasswire Middle School. I just made it up. They want, Grasswire there. They want 40,000, and then this is what they're going to do at that site with that money. So this is where the more specific details come in on just what are you going to do at Grasswire Middle School. Okay, so is that clear? Is there any questions on that? Okay, we hope it's simplified enough. Okay, and then like I said, that just goes through each one. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We will know how many schools you apply for based on this. So if you have 2 filled out, we know you're applying for 2. If you have 4, 4, 6, 6. Now, what I would do, and I always tell people to double check their math, what you should do is go through and make sure that the totals here that you've asked for each site match the budget summary page for the whole thing. So let's say, if sites 1 through 4 total up to $200,000, and then you go back to your budget summary page for the whole district or charter school, and it's 180, then something's off. So you'll just want to make sure that you double check to make sure those numbers will match. We know if you don't, the grant readers will, but it's good if you do it first. So just make sure you do that. So we don't need to go through all the, like I said, these are the exact same thing, 1 through 6 sites, depending on how many you write for. Okay, then the appendix, that is on page 25. I'm not going to spend time going through this because I know you can read them. If you have questions, though, please feel free to email or call me. But this is where it tells you salaries, what can be included, employee benefits, line item C. If you have questions, please call me. If there's something, because obviously we could have, 50 pages of stuff. And sometimes we don't know. That's what I liked when I first started. I had somebody call and say, hey, can I buy a ball with my supply money? And I had to go back to their grant and say, I had to read it to see what their proposal was and if it was in there. So that's what this is. If you have a question, call me and see. And if I don't know the answer, like I said, I'm still new. And I am willing to admit that I don't have all the answers, but I will try to the death to find the answer and then get back with you. So that's the appendix for that. That just goes through everything. Unallowable items, you can read those. These are just things that we put together. A lot of them are the same from the grant before. Alcoholic beverages, I think that's self-explanatory, but we have to write it. Bad debts, entertainment, lobbying, membership costs, scholarships, student aid, things like that. The thing to note above that is the above list is not meant to be inclusive. So that means if it's not on here and you say, well, it's not on there, so I thought I could go buy a car. You probably won't have enough money anyway, but yeah, just make sure you call me first. Say, hey, I have this. I didn't see it on the unallowable expenses. Can I do this with it? And we'll research and make sure that it's okay to do, or talk to my financial person and ask, are we in compliance with, what the grant's asking in the law? So, okay, I have some more slides I want to run over, but is there any glaring questions with this that I can answer as a group? If you have individual, like I said, if you'll talk to me after, email me, we can talk on the phone, whatever. And then we can keep on track with time. Hi.
Hi, I just have a quick programming and funding question.
Okay.
So if you're writing from a district perspective and you're utilizing some of the funds to build like universal tier 1 capacity, can you do that? Because it would benefit individual schools by far, but if you were to host a training per se, that increases the ability to deliver curriculum not just in the targeted schools but across the district, is that a possibility? Because that's something that has a broader impact, and to try and narrow it down to targeted schools when you have 86 schools, the bigger impact we can make with this money, the better, in my opinion. And so to limit it to only impacting 6 schools when we can do something at a universal level, I just want to know, if that's possible, and how you would write that in, given the current application.
That is a good question. And we thought, hold on, sorry, I'm just gonna get this up for a minute.
But then you're still writing it with the targeted schools.
I'll answer this how I think, and then I might have Lisa, who's done this longer, add her comments. Definitely. I mean, the purpose of this is to do, I mean, obviously, we want information out to everybody. The idea with the 6 sites, I mean, I want you to know this, that didn't come lightly. There was many hours conversations about this because of they want to see more targeted outcomes from a group, and that's, I mean, that's really it. Is the legislators have said, I mean, not with just this money, but actually every funding meeting I've been to, we keep giving money, but we're not seeing, like, what are the outcomes? We want to see more outcomes. So that was why, I mean, that was the decision for that, is so that we can really target and show. But your question is great, and yeah, valid. I would say, and like I said, Lisa, you tell me what you think. For things like that, if it's a training, a program, something like that, I definitely think, absolutely, you can invite more people, do, you know, broader the bigger. I would put it in, I would write it, so if you look at page, and I don't know if this answers your question, and to be honest, I'm not sure how this would look until we actually tried it to see. But if you go back to page 14, the budget summary and narrative as a whole, and then if you wrote it into here as a whole, like as a district, we want to support this professional development training for Davis district schools, because I know you're with Davis. I don't see why you couldn't. It would just be the it's the financing part you'd have to say, you know, would that cost, say it's cost $4,000 to run what you're doing, then you might just have to divide the sites, because you still have to pay for it, right? So you might have to take, say you're asking for 4 sites, it's $4,000, and you would take $1,000 from each school to do it. I mean, I don't know, you're right, these are some of the tricky things. I'm glad you're asking these questions, because these are things we'll write down and take back and say, you know, these are things we're thinking about doing. But we are kind of pioneering this to align with other things, and it is tricky. But did that answer your question? I mean, I think there's ways to help do it. I just don't know with the budget, so you'd put it in the main application page under the budget summary, and then as far as the funding, you'd have to. I would think so, right? I mean, I don't know any other way as far as budget-wise to make that clean without doing that.
Right.
I mean, is there any other way you can see?
Not that I can think of, but it's something we can certainly talk about. Yeah. And, you know, we're flexible.
Yeah.
And within reason, you know, we had to come to some conclusions before today. But as you're bringing these ideas to us, we want you to know we take them into consideration and definitely talk about them. So we want to make it work for you. The other thing I was just going to mention is, over the last couple of years, not only the legislature, but the state board has been asking us to show evidence of impact for each of these funding streams. And that word impact is really what's kind of at the heart of these decisions to streamline into 6 sites and go a little bit deeper into the sites, as opposed to spreading it a little thinner among more sites. And so and the case could be made the other way as well, but we had to go one direction, and so that's why we decided to go this route, to try and show that impact within each of the LEAs. But we certainly, Kim's taking notes, I'm taking notes, and we want to take your suggestions and questions under consideration, because within legislation and board rule, we have the ability to show some flexibility. Other questions right now before we?
Okay.
You sure? Okay.
How have other schools shown impact? I want to see, so I know what we need to do to show the impact. Because some things are softer evidence and some are harder.
Well, I do.
I don't have I'm going to let Kim answer that one.
I'm going to answer, but it's not really, I don't know the answer. That's the problem. That's why, no, good question. No, I'm not. The problem is we don't have, sorry, I'm trying to really think. I should just say it. There hasn't been a lot to show what's been happening with this money as far as outcomes. So that's why we're doing this. So the answer is we don't know. We don't have something to show. I mean, we have things like, I shouldn't say that. I don't want to say what you're doing isn't good, but I mean, it's, how many kids come, the breakdown of ethnicity and how many are in programs, but we haven't seen how many kids has this deterred from, from gangs prevention or from being in gangs or from how many helped grades. I mean, that end year report has some good information on it, but there hasn't been a lot of outcomes from it. There's nothing from it, but I don't blame that. I mean, I think part of it is a year-to-year thing, how it's hard to show that. So with the answer to that, I will ask and see if there's, I'm happy to talk to Travis to see what he's found, but I know looking through all the reports and things we've been asked, there's nothing. So
then my question would be, is you provided some resources as research-based programs,
Mhm.
or evidence-based programs, and she has a
Oh, yeah,
possibility. What kind of screening tool or outcome tool do they have for us to use to get you that outcome? Or, I don't know if I can say it as good as that again. Yeah, so you've given us examples of research-based programs that are, let's look at and see if you can implement them into the programs that you have.
Mhm.
So what screening tools from those programs you've provided us, how are we going to get those outcomes for you? What screening tools, like, if you were to come to our district, provide the program that you have, how do we get that impact that they're wanting? What screening tools do you, and I shouldn't point at you because you're just here. Yeah, but I mean, like, if I have you come down, what are we going to be able to pull out from what you're doing with our kids to provide that? Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I agree. She's saying sorry, I could nuance her. Chris Murphy, who's, as far as the gang, Choose Gang Free, she's the one over it, and she would be the best one. If you're interested, I would say definitely with her. I would get, her contact information and get together with that.
Chris is the director, and I think that she would best be able to explain the breakdown and the impact and the different, things that it shows for your districts.
And I will tell you, so, I mean, like I said, I'm learning too with this, especially since we don't have a lot of past stuff to go off of. Those resources that I gave you, that's why I went in and looked, because it will tell you in a lot of those programs, if you read them, I mean, I hate to throw that back on you, but there isn't a scripted thing to give you to say this is going to work, because the issues that are happening in San Juan are very different than what's happening in Provo and Ogden. So, I mean, I'm not trying to not answer the question, but I really don't have the answer for that. If you go to these programs, the Get Great program, it talks about, we thought it was going to work for female, I mean, I don't remember which program, but females 10 to 14. Well, we found out with this and this, it actually worked for the males 10 to 12. So, and it will tell you, it will say the screening process. I know some districts do have a screener. That's the problem. We don't have a state screening identifier. I don't know if that's something we can get to. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's something that's in my job scope and sequence, and I can definitely look into, but for now, I don't have that. We don't have that in place. I know just some districts, some charter schools, it kind of goes back to the gang policy within your school. That's why when I first started, they said, here's this money to do mini grants to have, and I was still trying to figure out what to do with this. I'm like, what? And they said, we have to have schools, charter schools, and school districts have policies on gang prevention intervention. This isn't just what they're doing discipline-wide. This is targeted. If they're having gang issues, what's the policy? So we're working on that. We're starting, but I wish I had more answers, but I don't know. But with those programs, and I'm willing to look for you as well. But I know certain school districts have screeners, and maybe with this list, that's what I'd like to see, is if there are people doing stuff, I'm all for sharing the wealth and love and helping each other out. So if there are outcomes, if there are screenings, if there are things like that, if people want to share that after, we can send out an email, and I'm happy to get a group serve. It kind of goes back to my next thing. Some of my agenda items, this is a little bit off topic, sorry, I don't answer your question, But I mean, those are things I would like to do. I'd like to meet. From what I understand, I don't know how much you guys meet, but for those that get the grant, I would like to meet at least twice a year, maybe quarterly. I get that it's hard to do that. But I think if we come together and we talk and we share, I mean, you guys really are the brains with, what's going on in your world, in your community, in your school. I only have a glimpse of everything, basically, and some things I'm not as familiar with. So I'd like to kind of meet as a group and talk about these things, what things are working, what things aren't working. Do we want to start councils, community council, not a community council, but council with gang prevention, get law enforcement, who else on the table? So those are things I want to do and I see happening, because I think the more we talk, the more we come up with great solutions. So anyway, that's further down the road, but go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask about, no, that's fine, about as far as outcomes, looking at like survey data or changes in SHARP survey on a school level, things like that.
Yes, that will work. Did you hear a question? So outcome data on SHARP survey, like she said, so if you could go back and look for last 3 years, has that increased, decreased? I mean, that's one thing. Same thing with discipline. Our discipline tickets, I don't know if you guys use that, but discipline, however they do that, measure that. Had they increased, decreased? What have you seen and why? Moises? Yeah. I know.
That is a big problem.
Yeah, you're right.
That is very common.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, you're right. But like I said, see, that's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, because you're right. There are some that, yes, what's actually happening.
Yeah, it's the ostrich.
Okay. Do you have other ways to access things?
So
Yeah, I have my law enforcement.
Okay.
And my juvenile justice services. But then that leads me to another question, because we have a new bill that's going into effect.
Sorry, Moises. Moises will come back to you as soon as she's done. Sorry.
That's what I was trying to
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Our folks online are going to miss this.
But if I say it wrong, then they're really going to hear me. So a concern that I'm thinking about is the new law that we're waiting to be signed with our partnerships with the courts and those charges that are going through, and where school districts are going to have to come up with their own system of consequences, or however we look at it, because we won't have the court system to support us. So that goes along with the identification piece that you talked about in the beginning. How are we going to, I know in the school district, we're going to have to, we will identify, we know those students, but it's not on any court docket, it's not on any case manager's radar.
Yeah. And those are real problems. And unfortunately, I don't have the answer. I don't know that. That's why, I mean, just.
He's got a solution.
Yes. We'll send it while you're walking over. Let me tell you. I know that's why it's so important when, student services, I use them because I know that was a big thing. But the people that can give you the numbers on what's happening in your school, in your area, is huge. But you're right, that's a huge concern. There's lots of legislative things going in that we don't know how it's going to play out or affect. But yet they give us these things and say, okay, do it. Show me the outcomes and measures, but no tools how to do it. So
can I
go ahead,
address some of those
Thank
issues
you.
that y'all are talking about? One, that, there is not an evaluation infrastructure set up at all. So one is the assessment. There is not an evidence-based assessment when it comes to gang issues. The assessments that are being used generally are for general crime and delinquency, right? So the LSI or the PSRA or PRA that's used in the criminal juvenile justice system, those aren't gang-specific though. And there isn't one that's been found to be evidence-based yet. They're working on it. It's going to take a while. My recommendations as a researcher in criminal juvenile justice is to use the SHARP data, right? This is specifically asking you, have you improved protective factors? Have you decreased risk factors? The SHARP data has that. The only issue that I have with that is if you don't have SHARP data for that specific school. Because what if you say, I have these 6 sites. Oh, we only have SHARP data for 2 sites. So that means that you may have to collect your own, right? Or maybe within the school, you're not targeting all the school kids in that school. You may be targeting a certain group, maybe the tier 2, right? So then you would have to do surveys pre and post for those kids specific, but you can use the questions from the SHARPs, right? So I would recommend use the SHARPs as much as you can. Be careful with law enforcement data. I work a lot with law enforcement data, and when it comes to the gang stuff, it is not very good. Okay, and I mean statewide. I work with all the gang data. Yeah, it's not very reliable. You could use general crime, delinquency crime, probably a lot better. When it comes to the gang stuff, we're having a hard time getting beat cops to fill all that document that fulfill the definition of gang membership. So if you do use law enforcement, use the general crime rather than gang-specific crime.
Oh, no, I'm good. Thank you.
And thank you guys, I mean, for fleshing this out. I've taken, like I said, lots of notes on things, and we can take back and ask some of it. And I wish, I mean, I'll try to see if there's more answers to outcomes and what's been happening in the past, but I know what was given to me that's what we need to start seeing. So, and maybe there is a way to do that, to start making it a screener for Utah. I mean, maybe that's something we can start, but unfortunately it's not gonna happen in 2 months. So I wish, it would be nice. Okay, I'm gonna jump back real quick, just distribution of funds. This is really all stuff we've talked about, but it's in the PowerPoint, so I'm not gonna cover it too much. This just goes back to what we talked about, 10% of their funding, again, administrative oversight, professional development, technical services, evaluation and reports. This is out of the law again, that's why I wanted to cover this. School districts and charter schools shall provide the USBE with a year-end evaluation report by June 30th for the previous year. I will have some kind of year-end report and a mid-year report. I don't have that now because it doesn't apply to everybody until we have it done, and I'm still fleshing that out. So you will have a year-end report that has to be in by June 30th according to the law. This is what it says it will include. This is straight from there. An expenditure report, a narrative description, copies of any and all projects developed, effectiveness report detailing evidence of individual and overall program impact on gang and gang-related activities and involvement, and other information or data as required by USBE. It also says that we may require additional evaluation or audit procedures from the grant recipient to demonstrate use of funds. So that's what I know I've been doing now. I've talked to some of you. I mean, we've gotten reimbursement requests, and sometimes I think every one that I've received, I've had to call and just ask questions. And it doesn't mean you're in trouble. It's just that we have to make sure that it goes in line with what you said and what you're doing and meets the law and the board rules. So we'll cover this, the evaluation reports. I don't want to dive too much into that because if you don't get the grant, I mean, it doesn't apply to you, and I don't want to spend your time. So we'll flesh that out more unless you have questions right now. But like I said, we'll have another meeting to go over all this. Okay, important things to remember about the grant application. You will have a mid-year report due January if you get it. It will be simpler than the year-end report. It's just so we can see where you're at mid-year, what's happening. Then the end-of-year report will be due by June 30th. And then something I'm implementing is site visits that will happen January to May. And what that means is I just want to come out and see what's happening. It's nothing scary. I mean, I don't even know. I might have a form. I don't know. I don't even know what that looks like yet. I just know that I can't help you unless I know what's going on or can't help support you. I'm hoping this point next year I have a lot more information than I do now. So that will happen, and we'll set those up. I mean, they're not surprised. If I pop in, that's just because that's who I am. But these are actual, like, hey, can I come see your school program sometime this week, next week? What time would be good for me to come? So that's what I'm talking about. All right, and then once again, how to submit a grant application. The other thing I just didn't put on, or we didn't cover, I don't think, was one original application, so just the signatures signed. If they're electronic, that's fine. I mean, if you have electronic signatures, I just need that original, so to say, application. And then I need 5 additional copies. So what should come to me is 6 total. 6 full applications. That's attachments, that's everything. Okay? So 6 completed applications, 1 original, 5 copies of the exact same thing should come in by May 10th. Yes? Oh, yep.
I just didn't know if you wanted to make adjustments on your requirements on the first page with the first original and then the 5, so they know the expectation if they don't have the PowerPoint with them. you know, so it's just right there on the front, what your expectations on your due date.
Oh, if they don't have, yeah. Everybody,
Yeah.
are you talking about online people?
Yeah.
too? Okay, yeah, and I will add that for the
Yeah.
online application, but thank you. Yeah, I will put that in. Okay, so, this thing. Okay, so 5 copies. Yeah, it's in the PowerPoint, which everybody should receive, but I'll put it on the front of that when I send it out so it's clear as clear. Huh? Yeah, I'll put it on there in the timeline. Okay, so the timeline, the next thing, this is just to show you. Oh, sorry, question? Yes.
So I know on the front where we have total amount requested for funding, that's for year 1. The whole application should be for 1 year, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, this is just for 1 year. The 3 years is, I mean, each year we'll do it again. I just wanted you to know the purpose is if you got the grant for this year, this next year, then you'll get it dependent upon funding for the next 2 years following. So correct. So the budget's just for 1 year. I don't want you to figure out a 3-year budget. You'll do that sub every time we do it. Okay. Okay, timeline. We just had the Bears Workshop. That's what's today. Letter of intent, which I'll email out. You don't have that, so I don't want you to worry. I'll send that out probably Monday morning. Let you think about it. And then it's just due back to me. You can do it anytime. It doesn't have to be on April 14th. If you know you're right, and send it in as soon as I send it to you. That's fine. Okay. Proposals are due by mail or in person Wednesday, May 10th by 5 o'clock. Review of proposals by grant review team will be the 11th through the 31st. And then you will be notified. And I will tell you, I like to know if I did or didn't. I don't like to wonder if I got the grant or didn't get the grant. So I will contact you either way. I don't like to make those phone calls for the, you didn't get it, but I mean, I will let you know. So like I said, by law, we have to let you know by July 1st, but that's a Saturday or Sunday. So I put June 30th, but our goal is to let you know hopefully before school gets out. That's the hope. Yes. Here in the building? Yeah. I am on the 2nd floor in student services and my little cubicles in there. And that's my information. If you have, I will tell you, it's easier. Yeah, if you need to see me, it's easier to make an appointment. Because this is not my only program, I'm kind of all over the place. So if you wanted to come see me, I'd say call me to make an appointment so I can meet you, because I would hate for you to come and I not be here. But yeah, 2nd floor, student advocacy services here in this building. That's my contact information, email, phone number. I will tell you, this is really bad timing on my part, but it wasn't planned for another one of my programs. I'm at a training Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So if you get my auto reply to email, I will try to email you back, but I do know what I've been told I'm going to is pretty intensive through the night. So I just don't want you to worry if you don't hear back from me right away. I do try to respond as quick as possible. So this coming Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So right after the thing that was set up before. So just don't worry if you get a message, email or phone. I did not do that on purpose. I'm not trying to avoid you. That was set up before. But just when you get that, don't be shocked or alarmed. For my other job, one of my other programs, I'm out doing a training. So, all right, any group questions? And then after, feel free to mingle, talk, or ask me questions. Is there anything else? Yes.
You mentioned that you would talk about some training opportunities as you were talking through the grant.
Some training.
Were you just talking about these people training?
Yes, that's what, yeah, sorry. Oh, she asked about training opportunities. I don't know what I'm trying to remember what I was referring to.
I think you were planning to get the grantees together.
Oh, that training,
I
yes.
think what we've heard was that there wasn't a lot of cohesion in the past, and that once the grantees are actually awarded, maybe quarterly or twice a year, or what you all would like is grant director meetings to share resources, ideas, brainstorm, do some problem solving, bring in external trainers based on your individual needs. And I think, I know Kim is committed to that, and that was one of the reasons she was brought in, is to enhance that support to the grantees. So I think that's what she was referring to moving forward with this new grant cycle, is enhancing the training to the grantees.
Thanks. And while you're taking the microphone, I'm going to actually say one more thing. There is a training coming up April, what are the dates of the gang conference? I don't know without looking. Okay, so there's the Utah Gang Conference in Salt Lake at the Southtown Expo. What dates did you say? 18th, 19th, 20th. I do know years ago when I was teaching, doing programs, I went and that really did help me. I have to admit, the first year I went, I was just like, oh, this is so interesting. So I went to the things I was just personally interested in. But the next year, I went to things that actually would help my I wasn't thinking too much, and I was more strategic. And that really did help me as far as help me with ideas of even what to do or training things. So that training is a really good training. What I would like to do for training, and I don't know if this is where I was going, but next year when we get the grant, I would like to do more training to directors, maybe bring people in. So that's what I'd like to do, but I don't have anything right now planned. So maybe that's what I was talking about too, but that's where I was going with that. Okay, yes.
All right, you might have said this, but I could have missed it.
I don't know what I've said anymore.
I'm curious, if we wrote the grant and we wrote it for 3 sites, you could give us, is it all or nothing, or we could get 2 of the sites? Well, or is it like the grant is the grant?
Good question. Okay, I'm going to answer this hopefully clearly. The grant, pretty much what it is you apply for the sites, and we'd like to say, hopefully if you wrote a great proposal and it's the needs there, we want to give it all to you. You'll get all the sites. 4 sites, you get 4. Now, if it comes down to it, the way this works, so I'm going to answer this kind of in a roundabout way. When we get the grant reviewers together, so what happens is, just so you know kind of that process, I don't know if you care to know, but I'll tell you. So they come to a meeting, we go over very clearly like the application, but more detail than what I just told you. Match it up to the rubric. We talk to them about everything, any questions. It's a training with them. Then they will take the grants that they are given with the rubric. They'll score it. They'll do their thing independently. They don't talk to other people. It's something on their own. And then what we do is we meet back together as a group. They send me actually all their scores in the meantime. We compile it, and we put the highest to lowest, basically is what it is. The highest score down to the lowest. And then we'll start with that top one, and we'll say, okay, and then as a group we talk, this was the top score, this is what they asked, and we'll go through. Now if there's discrepancies or questions, so let's say their spread of points for a section is 1 to 5. And let's say that 2 people put a 5 and somebody put a 1. Well, that's too much of a spread. I don't know how, you know what I mean? That's too much. So we actually, they have to get together and we have to talk about why, because that's too far. Obviously somebody didn't read something or somebody missed something. So we really try to make it as fair, as even as possible. We really want people to do a good job. I take this grant reading serious because I've done it, and I know what it's like. You feel like, these people, these kids, these districts, you're really kind of the one deciding, and they don't, just so you know too, they sign a form if saying that there's no problems, that they don't have any bias towards a school or something, because we don't want that either. If they've worked with a school and had problems, I'm not going to give them that grant to read. So I don't think that's the case with who we usually get, but I just want you to know we really try to make it fair, seamless as possible. Okay, now back to answer your question. I told you it was a long way there. So we get with those scores and we start reading. And if we say, okay, here's the deal. Let's say that there's no problems, everything's good with those top 4 scores. The 4 highest gets funded. Now let's say that we have $50,000 left. And the next grant down asks for 3 sites at $40,000 or $60,000. What we do is come to you and say, here's the deal. We have $50,000 left. Are you willing to run 1 site with $50,000 or not? And then you get to choose and see. But for those other grants, it's all or none funding unless there's questions with the grant readers and they say, like I said before, they've asked for $80,000 and we just don't see what they're doing with $80,000. And then we'd come talk to you. We wouldn't just cut you off and say, we scored you terrible. If there's real serious questions, the grant will call you and talk you and have you talk us through it, because maybe it's something we didn't understand. Maybe it's something that wasn't displayed right. I don't know. So it really will be all or none unless it gets down to there's not enough money or, there's questions with the budget, things like that. So did that answer your question? Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure, because I know this is a lot to take in. I know there's a lot of changes. And I appreciate nobody throwing darts at me yet. But I just want to say I appreciate you guys coming, and this is a learning opportunity too. I mean, like I said, I'm learning too, and I'll take your feedback back, and we have, I mean, a great team here that really want to do what's best to fulfill the role for you guys, the kids, the schools, the legislature. I mean, there's a lot of people that we have to try to fulfill and answer to. So, but I appreciate you taking your time, and if you have questions, please call me, email me. I'm happy to help. And we'll learn together. I mean, if there's something that doesn't make sense on this application, we'll, dive in and try to change it and make sure it makes sense. So, okay, any questions before we wrap up? And feel free to stay and talk or ask me questions. Any online questions, Lisa, that we need to address?
Everything.
Okay. Thank you guys, I appreciate it. Have a great day. Have a good weekend.